So, how do you even begin to build an education system for what, over a billion people? I mean, it doesn't just pop into existence, right? It's something that's been built layer by painstaking layer over literally thousands of years. And today, that's exactly the story we're going to trace. I mean, think about it. That is the big question, isn't it? It's this massive challenge that, well, pretty much everyone has had a crack at: sages, emperors, colonizers, and of course, modern governments. And every single one of them has left their fingerprints all over the system we see today. All right, so let's really get into it. This whole thing is a journey through time. I mean, you've got this incredible arc from, say, sacred texts being memorized under a banyan tree, all the way to students tapping away learning code on a laptop. It's this amazing story of evolution, right? Where ancient traditions are bumping right up against modern ambitions. Okay, so to really get a handle on where India's education system is now, we've got to rewind, like way back to the very beginning. Our story kicks off with this really foundational model of learning, something called the Gurukula. And this was education at its most personal. Seriously, just picture it. You leave your home to go live with your teacher, your guru. Learning wasn't this thing that happened in a classroom for a few hours. No, it was your whole life. It was this totally immersive experience, all focused on developing you as a complete person, not just, cramming facts into your head. Now, what's so fascinating here is just how broad this curriculum was. I mean, look at this. This was not just about religious stuff, not at all. Alongside Vedic hymns, you had students tackling really complex subjects. We're talking logic, mathematics, astronomy, even medicine. It was this super sophisticated blend of the spiritual and the scientific, kind of like this interdisciplinary approach that, let's be honest, modern education is just now trying to get back to. And this, right here, perfectly shows the two sides of the coin when it came to ancient education. On one hand, you had these massive, almost legendary universities, the Ivy Leagues of their time, really, like Nalanda. I mean, it drew scholars from all over Asia. But then, on the other hand, you have discoveries like these scripts from Kilati. And what they tell us is that reading and writing wasn't just for the elite scholars. Nope, it was part of everyday life for a lot of regular people way earlier than we ever used to think. All right, let's jump forward in time a bit. As we get into the medieval period, the whole educational landscape really starts to shift. We've got new influences coming in, and they bring with them these more organized, structured centers for learning. It's another fascinating layer to the story. So what this era really introduced was a much more formalized, a much more structured approach to education. And this was heavily influenced by Islamic traditions. So what's really key here is that you're seeing a clear educational pathway start to form. It's like a two-step system. Kids would begin at a maktab, which was basically like a primary school to get all the basics down. Then, if they wanted to keep going, they could move on to a madrasa for higher learning. Think of it like a seminary or a law school, a place for advanced studies in everything from theology and law to literature and science. Okay, so now we get to a point that is, and I'm not exaggerating, a total game changer in India's educational history. When the British arrive, it sets off this fundamental conflict, a real battle for the very soul of education in the country. And believe it or not, it all kicked off with this amount of money: 1 lakh rupees. Back in 1813, the British Parliament set aside that much every year for education. Now, I know, that might not sound like a ton of money today, but back then, it was a pretty big deal. It showed a real commitment. The only problem? Nobody, and I mean nobody, could agree on what to actually do with it. And this is where this huge debate just erupts. You basically had two camps. In one corner, you had the Orientalists. Their argument was, hey, let's use this money to support traditional Indian learning, in languages like Sanskrit and Persian. But in the other corner, you had the Anglicists, and they were saying, no. The only way forward is to push Western science and literature, and it all has to be taught in English. So you've got this complete stalemate, this clash of visions. And it was broken by this guy right here, Thomas Babington Macaulay. He was the chairman of the Maine Education Committee, so whatever he said carried a ton of weight. And let me tell you, he picked a side, and he didn't mince words. He basically settled it with his famous Minute on Education, where he said the goal was, and I'm quoting here, the promotion of European literature and science among the natives of India. And just like that, the debate was over. The new official policy was set, a European-style education with English as the language. And that one decision? Wow. Its effects, both good and bad, are still echoing across India today.
So with the debate settled, the blueprint was officially drawn up. A brand new system starts to take shape, one built from the ground up on a British model. And this system would go on to define Indian education for the next 100 years, and even beyond.
And just look at how fast things moved. This timeline really shows it. We're talking less than 50 years to go from just setting aside some money to having a concrete policy in place, to that policy being cemented by something called Wood's Dispatch, all leading up to the creation of 3 major universities. It happened incredibly quickly.
And these new universities, they were a big deal. They were modeled directly after the University of London, and they became the new top tier of learning. And, well, there was a very clear purpose here. They were designed to create a class of Indians who were educated in the British system, who could then help run the massive British administration in India.
All right, now let's fast forward to 1947, independence. India is finally free to shape its own educational future. But the situation it inherited, well, monumental challenge doesn't even begin to cover it. Just let this number sink in for a second. 18.3%. That was the national literacy rate right after independence. Think about that. Less than 1 out of every 5 people in the whole country could read or write. It's just staggering. And if you break that number down, the reality gets even tougher to swallow. The gender gap was just enormous. Female literacy was barely under 9%. That's less than a third of the rate for men. So this was square one. This was the massive hurdle the new Indian government had to face from day one.
So where do you even start with a problem that big? Well, independent India's answer was to get systematic. They set up these really important commissions, like the ones you see here. And their job was huge. They had to figure out how to decolonize the curriculum, how to imagine a whole new future. They looked at everything, from totally restructuring the universities to creating a single school system for the whole country. And a huge, huge focus was put on science and technology. The goal was to build an education system for a modern, independent India.
So from ancient Gurukulas to modern universities, from writing on palm leaves to coding with pixels, it has been one heck of an extraordinary journey. And it really just leaves you with this one big question, right? As India keeps growing, keeps changing, what's the next chapter? What's the next great transformation in its educational story going to be?